Hello, and let's get started. Welcome to jails. This week is jail week. We're going to be discussing jails and the importance of jails and how jails work or resolve around within the criminal justice system. Next week is midterm week. I know this week is midterms, but you guys have got so many other midterm tests to do. I thought I would push my midterms to next week. And this way you guys can have a little bit more time to study and prepare and those such things. Yes, the animals are active today. The chickens are out of their coop and wandering all over the place, so my dog's a little active. So let's share my screen, and let's first share to the content page. We'll share this. Okay, so this week is week 8. We're going into corrections. Okay, there are my lecture notes. And this week's objectives, this week's ideas, this week's thoughts are to trace the development of jails throughout history, to explain how the first, second, third generation jails differ in design methods, to understand how jail populations are different from prison populations, to discuss the purpose of jails, and all my notes are there. And we will move on from there. Let me close this. The PowerPoint I'm using is also posted here. You've got your quiz. Your outline is due this week. And your discussion. So the discussion for this week is jails serve a number of purposes. Which do you believe is the most important and why? Make sure that you use in-text citations. Make sure that you respond to people. Jackson's done a great job. He's already posted for this week. He's got his references. Megan has already posted for this week. She has her stuff already there as well. And we'll go from there. So, and then also your outline is due this week. And inside the outline, I already have one person that's submitted, but your outline should look something like this with a few citations. Okay. 6 citations. 1 citation must be a book. 1 citation must be a journal article. 1 citation must be an approved website. The other 3 can be your choice. You can have more than 6 references if you need to. However, Wikipedia is not an authorized source. Angelfire is not an authorized resource. TikTok is not an authorized resource. Okay. Most of social media is not an authorized resource unless you're doing a direct quote of somebody saying something. Okay. So I'm glad to see that one person's already submitted. These things are due on Sunday. Today's a travel day for me. Today I am going into East Texas, well, south of Dallas, close to Waco, and we'll be there. We'll be there for a while, well, for the next 10 days anyway. So next week there may or may not be a video, but next week is midterm week. So the test should open. Let's go back and double check. I know I've already stopped sharing. It's visible to students. You've already got 2 people that have already submitted, so it's already visible. It's already open. You can take it at your desire. Okay, so let's go back to the PowerPoint now. We can share the PowerPoint. The front door to corrections is the jail, is the county jail, run by the county sheriff. Again, we've already covered the learning objectives. I've read those to you already. Um, the Walnut Street Jail was the first jail in the history of America. It was built in 1773 by the Quakers, and it was housed individuals without regard to sex, age, or offense. You got convicted of a crime or you were suspected of a crime, you were put in this jail. You are in solitary confinement, and you we're not allowed to speak or talk to anybody. By the end of the 19th century, most cities in the United States had a jail. 3,116 jail facilities currently inside the United States. 3/4 are under the jurisdiction of an elected sheriff. The first generational jails with multiple occupancy cells or dormitories that line corridors like spokes. So you've got a central, and the Texas prison system kind of has the same thing. You've got this central picket. And then from this central picket, you can look into all of the cells. The prison I work at, there are three wings to each cell block, to each building. So the picket sitting there, you look to your right, you look straight ahead, you look to your left, and you've got 2 tiers of cells, 84 inmates, 42 cells, 21 cells on each tier, total of 42 cells, 2 people per cell. That is 84 inmates per cell block, or we call them wings. Staff must patrol the corridors to observe people in their cells. Supervision is intermittent. Okay, so you don't have, unless you're in maximum security or medium security, you've got one rover that roves between the 3, on my unit anyway. You've got one rover, one correctional officer who roves between the 3 wings through the 3 cell blocks, and then one picket guard who is generally watching and overseeing all of it. Staff must patrol the corridors, observe people in their cells. Every 60 minutes, there's an in and out or an egress ingress, where they open the cell, they let you out in the day room, or they put you back into your cell. You get this choice once an hour. Okay. Showers are not in the cells, so if you want to take a shower, you do have to get out during an egress. The biggest challenge is the inability of an officer to see what's going on in more than 1 or 2 cells at a time, leading to the emergence of second-generation cells, or second-generation jails. The staff remain in a secure controlled booth, surrounded by pods or housing areas. Surveillance is remote. Second-generation jails have been termed podular. They're dormitory style, remote supervision facilities. Property destruction is minimized. The verbal interaction between staff and jail residents is less frequent than in the first generation jails. Third generation jails are called direct supervision jails. They emerged in 1974. There is no secure booth for the supervising officer. There is no physical barriers between the officer and the individual. The management style is direct supervision. Okay, so there are 9 principles of direct supervision. Okay, and the first is effective control. Staff firmly establishes their authority, and they have to be consistent. In order for you to maintain effective control, you have to be consistent with what you're doing. Effective supervision is the continuous supervision is maintained by the unit officers. Competent staff that Correctional Standards guide recruitment, they guide training, and we seek for only the best to participate. Staff and inmate safety is performance based. It is research centered, data centered. It is cost effective. There are more architectural choices, commercial grade furnishings, equipment options that are available that make running a prison a little more cost effective. Effective communications. This is direct communication exists between the residents and the officers. You're in constant contact and speaking with the offenders. The best way, and what I've found is the best way to keep a prison at peace is through communications. You talk to the guy, you talk to the people that are involved, you share your information, and you communicate. You tell them what's going on. This way they can make it and they can adjust. Direct communication exists between residents and officers, officers and supervisors. Okay, classification orientation is known with whom you are dealing. Intense supervision is maintained for the first 12 to 72 hours. Because the first 12 to 72 hours is when a new inmate, a new offender first to jail is more likely to attempt to suicide. Fairness. Justice and fairness, you have to be consistent with your discipline. Officers exercise an primarily informal discipline, and then policy decisions are guided by a team approach. Okay, and we have this, or I have this at my prison. I sit down once a month with the warden, the assistant warden, the majors, and the leadership. And I talk about what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to accomplish. They talk about the problems, the security issues that exist. And we do a team approach to make sure that we can bring rehabilitation to the prison. I don't know if I shared, but a couple of weeks ago, we had the first ever inmate-led, inmate-organized religious Christian revival in the history of TDCJ. We have a lot of revivals. I bring a lot of crusades into the prison. I bring a lot of big names like Mike Barber and Marty Breeze and Rock of Ages and Kairos and Colby, and Freedom and Jesus. There's a lot. UBB, Universal Beyond Bars. There's a lot of groups that I bring that we, as the faith-based initiatives, rehabilitation, bring into the prison system. But this was the first time this was ever inmate-led, inmate-organized. The speakers and teachers included myself and my supervisor, the regional chaplain, a couple of my volunteers who are pastors in local churches, and then I had the inmate field ministers and preachers who also taught. It was a great time. We baptized 61 men. I had 221 inmates on the yard, and no security. It was just me. I averaged 10 miles a day. Well, I walked 10 miles a day for each of the 4 days of this revival. But there's a team approach that helps make this happen. Okay. They're locally operated correctional facilities that can find people before or after conviction based upon their sentence. Total number of people admitted to the jail each year is termed or defined as the total admission. The average daily population is the number of people that are in the jail each day. Okay, so you've got the ADP, which is the daily population, and then the total admission is how many people went in and out of that jail throughout the year. Purpose of jails is to hold persons who are sentenced to jail facilities. They usually have a sentence of 1 year or less. They receive individuals pending arraignment. They hold them as they await trial, conviction, or sentencing. They readmit persons who violate probation, parole. They jump bail. They violate their bail, or they're absconders and they just escape community supervision. The jails detain juveniles pending their transfer to a juvenile authorities. Normally, this is put in a solitary confinement so that they're not put in the general population with the adults. They hold persons with mental illness pending their movement to appropriate mental health facilities, also normally kept in solitary confinement. They hold individuals for the military or protective custody as witnesses for courts or contempt of court. Most of the time, they're held in the booking area, waiting for these transfers. And they release persons to the community upon completion of their sentence. Some states, after you finish your prison term, you get transferred back to the county jail. You spend a couple days in the county jail, and then you are released. They transfer people to federal, state, and other authorities. Okay, so as people are being transferred, Texas has built their own prisons for this. The Ware unit, which is next door to the prison I work at, it used to be when it was in operation, was a transfer unit. Okay, so we've got program units. We've got a lot of program units within the prison system. So if somebody on my prison is accepted to the Merit program, which is a Muslim-based, faith-based initiative program, that's in the Houston area. So they can't get there in one day. So what would happen is they would have to stop at a jail for the night. They would have to, or a couple days, so, or they go to the Middleton unit in Abilene and they spend a week or so there. They've also got the Montford unit and the hospital units. If you don't get there in time, if you can't make it in a single day trip, because Texas is a pretty big place. I know Arkansas and Oklahoma, you can cross Arkansas and Oklahoma in one day. You can't do that in Texas. So a lot of times people spend the night at county jails. They house individuals for federal, state, and other authorities due to crowding. Okay, so there's a 6-month waiting list in Texas. So after you're convicted and you're sentenced to prison, it could take up to 6 months before you get to prison. And in that time, you're hanging out and you're waiting in the county jail. They operate community-based programs such as alternatives to incarceration. I know back in the 1980s when probation started in the state of Texas, it was operated out of the jail, and sheriff's deputies were the probation officers. Since then, we've turned around, and now you have to have a college degree to become a probation officer. And a lot of times, we really like the idea that you have a criminal justice degree, and I'd like the idea that you have a criminal justice degree. But it's probably better if you are going to be a probation officer, that I still want you to get the degree in criminal justice, but you need the minor in human services or social work, because there's a lot of collaboration that you do with the community to find resources to help your offenders to become or maintain their freedom and to rehabilitate and become members of society. Okay, jail population. So who's in the jail? There's some charts for you. Everybody likes charts. 99% of the people in jail are over the age of 17. Race and ethnicity. Almost half of the people, 48% of the people who are in county jails across the country, half of them are white, 35% are black. The remainder is Hispanic and other. 70% of the people in county jails are still waiting trial. 87% are male. 70% are felonies. So, how many people are under jail supervision? 92% are in jail. 8% are outside of jail. They're on some form of bond or day reporting or in a treatment center. 6% of the total population is under some form of correctional supervision, and all this starts with the county jails. Okay, jail population characteristics. Okay, so States with incarceration rates of 0 to 100 are Oregon, okay, and it goes on as such. And these are 100,000. Okay, there's been an upsurge in the number of women who are incarcerated in the United States, and I'd like to blame the feminist movement for this. We can have this discussion in the Lion's Den. Over half the women in jail were under the influence of alcohol or drugs at the time of the offense. 46% of the members, 46% had members of their families sentenced to prison. 2 out of every 10 grew up in a home where one or both parents abused drugs or alcohol or both. We're finding that, back in the 50s, and everybody calls it the Leave It to Beaver age, the Leave It to Beaver world, where it was a misogynistic community, where everything was ruled by men. Well, with the feminist movement, women started to demand equality. Okay, so now they're going to jail. Back in the 50s, if Beaver's mother got drunk or got caught DWI, police would bring her home to her husband and let the husband deal with it. But now they don't do that. Now they just bring them to jail. We're also finding that women are becoming a little more violent in their activities and their actions. So women in jail have histories of sexual and or physical abuse or sexual abuse. They turn to drugs to hide their shame, to hide their feelings of guilt. And so they turn to drugs and alcohol. The relational theory and female development describes different ways men and women develop. Women are drawn into criminal activity because of the relationships with men. And I've had so many women on my caseload that were only in trouble because they were mules for their husbands, or they were doing something to satisfy or please the desires of their husbands, and their husbands dragged them kicking and screaming into the criminal activity. Trauma theory: violence and abuse encountered in the past affect current behavior, and this is the adverse childhood events. Okay, and this is an overcomers program which we try to deal with and to overcome in helping people to properly process and to overcome the trauma that they've had in their lives. And this hopefully would affect a woman's behavior. So race and jail populations. The prevailing thought in criminology, and we've already shared this, 48% of people in jail are white, but that is underrepresented. 75% of the community of the general population is white, but only 48% are in jail. The Hispanic population, is 15%. They're closer to, they're almost right, but the Hispanic population is at about 20% of the population, so they're underrepresented. The Black population only represents 14% of the general population, and yet they are 35% of the people in county jails. But the thought is that because of the opioid crisis, racial profiling, the war on drugs are often cited as the reasons why you find the overrepresentation of minorities within the prison system. But those minorities are, all minorities are considered overrepresented. But as we see and we saw in the chart, it's primarily the African American population that's overrepresented in jails and in corrections. A number of researchers have found that judges impose higher bail or more likely to deny bail altogether if the defendant is a racial minority. And this is why we have the overreaction in some communities where they have no bail. You know, they have rules where you can't set bail. You either let them go free on bail or you hold them in jail. Okay, the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act of 1974. Young people charged with offenses may not be held in secure confinement. Juveniles generally may not be held in jails in which adults are confined. And if they are, it's for a limited period of time until the juvenile authorities can come acquire those juveniles. If juveniles are temporarily detained in adult facilities, they must have no contact with the adult inmates, which means they're kept in solitary confinement. In order to reduce the number of minors who come into contact with the juvenile system, the hope or the prayer is, I know in Texas, they put together a 7-point juvenile probation program to try and keep these kids out of the correctional system. Because once they're placed in the correctional system, there is a stigma that's attached to them. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy or a labeling theory. I'm sure you've heard labeling theory in your intro class, where if you continuously call somebody a convict, a criminal, unfit, whatever derogatory name that you want to call them, this is where this is what's going to happen. The leading cause of inmate death in jails is suicide, and this is since 2000, and we see that number increasing. Even in Texas, in the prison system. Homicide in jail is another concern for jail administrators. And Friday night at the Daniels unit, north of where my unit is, we had a hit. There were two guys that were stabbed. One guy was stabbed 47 times. The other guy was stabbed 48 times. They're both in the hospital. Hopefully and I've been off for 3 days, so I don't know how their health is progressing. In 2003, we had PREA, the Prison Rape Elimination Act. And that's something else that's changed within the prison system. I know, but when I first started going into the prisons, we'd turn around the corner and the officers, every time you left a building, you left the wood shop or you left the chapel, you left education, you could find yourself being strip searched right out there in the open. But because of PREA, now strip searches have to be justified. There has to be reasonable suspicion, articulable reasonable suspicion, and the strip search has to be done behind a privacy barrier, so that while the only person that sees them naked is other male officers or female officers if it's a female offender. 2017 jail inmates were murdered. In 2006, the number peaked to 36, decreased to 16 in 2008, and ever since, homicides, we're reaching about 25 homicides a year in the county jails. So the maximum number of bed inmates is the rated capacity. In 2021, 34 of the nation's 3,100 jails were privately operated under the contract to local governments. Their private jails are located in 12 states. These are run by companies like, it used to be Corrections Corporation of America, but now it's CoreCivic. MTC, which is the Management and Training Corporation. I used to work for the Management and Training Corporation. At one time, I used to work for Corrections Corporation of America. There are a lot of privately run jails across the country. The average cost to operating a jail is approximately $34,000 per person. And this includes their food. This includes their housing, their electric, their clothing, everything, because it costs $34,000 a year just to maintain life. Pay to stay jails are local correctional facilities that allow persons in jail to pay between $100 and $300 a day for extra privileges in accommodations and food and entertainment. The Texas prison system is starting an incentive program. Families can get together and they can donate couches and big screen TVs and other things. A bail is written to obligation with or without collateral security given to a court to guarantee appearance before the court. Bail amounts are usually set by published schedules based on the offense, normally ranging from $1,000 to $25,000. Pretrial detainee is a person who is held in jail prior to trial and cannot afford bail, or bail is denied for some purpose because there's a flight risk. There has been an argument over the last couple of years about abolishing monetary bail because the poor can't afford bail. Okay? Even though we have a bail bondsman where you pay 10% of the bond to the bail bondsman, they'll let you out and they'll pay the rest of your bond. The problem is that when you show up to court, the bail bondsman gets all of his money back, but you don't get any money back. So Illinois is the first state to start abolishing monetary bail, and this was a couple years ago. R&R, release on recognizance. There's a conditional release. There's other ways to release you into the community. You've got day reporting. You've got pretrial probation officers putting you into social programs. There's a lot of things that set up. Transitioning, the reentry is the transitioning of persons that make from jail to the community. This model focuses in three areas: screening and assessment for those at the highest risk to recidivate, implementing evidence-based processes that address criminogenic needs, implementing data and performance. And I've discussed this before. I've got a large sex offender population on my prison, and they have to go through an evaluation every year to see if they're going to be civilly committed or if they're going to be able to be released to go home. Okay, so jail standards are the American Jail Association has an inspection and accreditation process. Some states lack effective jail inspections due to the resistance from county officials. Other states like New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Texas have implemented state oversight with independent agencies empowered to develop standards of conduct, such as the American Jail Association. Every jail, every prison must be accredited. My prison is accredited through the American Correctional Association or American Corrections Association, and they come in monthly and they look at our paperwork and they audit our prison to make sure that we're following humanitarian guidelines. So the ACA accreditation, I just started talking about that, is to protect the health and safety of the staff of those who are in the jail, to help in defending the jail against lawsuits over conditions of incarceration, and preparing for accreditation and review. With accreditation comes professional recognition and status. It makes to make jail certification easier for small and medium-sized jails. Adjustments have been made. Okay, so that is our discussion on jails today. Let me stop sharing. And we are just back here. Yes, it is Sukkot, so I have left the straw and I've returned to felt. This will probably be the hat that you see for the rest of the semester, if not one of my fedoras. I'm really enjoying the semester. I hope you guys are enjoying it as well. We will see you in the forums if you have any questions. I would like to see a discussion in the Lions Den on uh, the causes and why you think women are finding themselves incarcerated more now than in the past. This is going to be voluntary. I will turn it into an extra credit project. So whoever's first to go into the Lions Den to discuss this will be great. And then anybody that participates in this discussion on why women are being incarcerated at a greater rate now than before, I can give you extra credit up to a full 10 points. That would be a letter grade for on your midterm. Okay, so with that, I will see you guys next time.